Thanks for coming out to PrismaDay. I'm going to be talking about Prisma 2 in action. First, I want to share a little bit about my journey to Prisma, and then I want to do a live coding demo using Prisma. Let's step back away from Prisma a little bit, and I want to tell you about a digital nomad living in Vietnam, hustling to make a living. In 2016, I moved to Vietnam to live cheaply and work on a Slack bot. That Slack bot eventually became known as Standup Jack. Standup Jack coordinates stand-ups for remote teams in Slack and helps over 300 teams stay in sync every week around the world. I learned a crazy amount during this time period of launching a product by myself, but one of the things that surprised me was that building conversational bots is surprisingly hard. You see, I wanted a Slack bot that you could do everything inside of Slack, and you could just talk to it in a conversational way. What I realized, so for an example, you could say things like, create a new stand-up, and it will walk you through the process of creating a stand-up, or change my time, and it will change when you report for stand-up, stuff like that. But in order to support these kinds of dialogues, you need a conversation engine. Conversation engines require a lot of data access. Unlike traditional REST APIs, that you may have like a handful of endpoints for creating users or getting posts and stuff like that, conversation engines require endpoints for each variation and each step you have with the user. So for any given conversation, there may be 20 different paths you can take that all require data access. And in Jack, there's about 20 different types of conversations you can have, so that's about 400 different types where you need to basically authenticate your users, fetch data, update the database, and respond. So originally, I was writing all these SQL queries by hand. As many of you have been in the past, I've been burned by a bunch of ORMs, and I thought the best thing to do is to just have the full power of SQL at my fingertips. This is the simplest approach. It works great for a while too, and I would highly recommend it when you're just bootstrapping, getting started. However, over time, as many of you have already seen, when adding new features and fixing bugs, these SQL strings become a common source of problems. You basically need to, as you're adding a new feature, you need to comb through your SQL and do find and replace and be careful, and most likely you'll find those issues in production once you deploy. So I got fed up with SQL strings, so I started looking for an alternative. And I stumbled upon this repo called XO. And XO has this novel concept where you introspect your database, and it will basically pull out all the types and generate custom code for you to talk to that database. I thought this has got to be too good to be true. First of all, these databases are super old. This introspecting, it can't get everything. It's not, how is it going to pull out the relationships properly, all that stuff. But more importantly, this must be more of a toy. What you're generating must only work for maybe creates, updates, deletes, etc. And how can that compare to my beautifully crafted SQL queries? I wanted to test my assumptions, though. So I gave XO a spin, and to my surprise, introspection worked really well. It pulled the database tables, it pulled the columns, it pulled the data types, it pulled the stored procedures, it pulls the enums, it pulls everything. Anything you need, it pulls it. And then I started porting Jack's code base to XO. And I ran into a few limitations with the generator side of things. So I realized XO's generators weren't going to cut it for me, but I was still in love with that concept of tying the database schema to your application. And so I decided to take XO's introspection and write my own generators. I found this interesting approach when I was doing this refactor. I would basically build code generators while simultaneously adding that generated code into Standup Jack and then running the tests. And so I kind of stumbled upon this virtuous cycle of, okay, I have a missing case here. Okay, write the generator code for it. Okay, stumble upon the next case, and then write the generator code for that, and just keep going until I had no more SQL statements. And so I kept expecting I was going to run into limitations with this process. But to my surprise, I was wrong about that too. 90% of my application queries mapped very cleanly to CRUD operations, and these are 400 SQL statements. So in the end, I was just wasting my life away writing query boilerplate by hand that a machine could have easily generated for me. And on top of that, the last 10%, with a little bit of refactoring, I was able to map it into that API. So to me, this was like a huge win. Like that meant my application was now programmatically tied to my database schema. And so what that means is whenever I add a new database table or column, I suddenly get this new API that I can use that's type safe and everything. And when I change my database and I regenerate the code, my application will yell at me and I won't be able to push to production until I fix it. And you get all those red squiggly lines and you're good to go. This greatly improved my ability to ship new features quickly and confidently. This was such a huge win that I actually decided I was going to make a product out of it. Like night and day changed my velocity and how fast I was able to ship. And I thought, if only people knew about this technology, like how helpful it could be to improve the velocity of their business. That's when I rediscovered Prisma 2. I had known about the Prisma team for over 2 years, but only realized recently that they were working on the same technology. So after coming out to Berlin and learning more about their plans, I knew this was something I had to be a part of. So my only regret is that I wish I had Prisma 2 in 2017, because it would have saved me a ton of time. So now I'd like to walk you through our tools and show you how fast and easy it is to get going with Prisma. I'm going to try live coding this, and hopefully the internet gods will be good to us today. Let's see. And let me demo this in the best way that I know how. Let's build a minimal stand-up bot. So in doing this exercise, I do want to highlight a few things. I want to highlight some of the kind of novel and neat features that Prisma has, including our development workflow, our nested creates, our filtering system, and our select API. So to get started, I basically set up. Can you read this okay? Yes or no? No? I see a couple no's. Yeah. Better? All right. Let's go with that for now. So I wrote a little bit of boilerplate up front, full transparency here. Basically, it's an Express server, and it responds to your Slack queries in an appropriate way and routes them to another file, which we'll be working on today. So it's only about 100 lines of code here. And so let's just make sure this is working, hopefully. Let's see. So I've started this server. I'm running ngrok down here, and let's see. Okay, so hi. Hello, PrismaDay. Awesome. All right, so the first thing we need to do is actually, let me walk you through this file first. So very quickly, this is the file we'll be working on. The three things we'll be doing today are creating a stand-up, getting the latest report, which is part of giving stand-up, and then posting a stand-up. So those are the three dialogues we'll be having, and yeah, those are here. Create stand-up, give stand-up, and post stand-up. So when you write post stand-up, it posts the stand-up. Yep. So the first thing we'll need to do is get a database and create the schema for that database. And so we have this data modeling format that we've just introduced called the data model 2. And so I'll be showing that today. And so the first thing in a data model is you want to have a data source. And let's type this out here. And so I'll be using SQLite for this example. And we'll give it a URL, prisma.db. And then I want to create a generator. And then this will be a provider, Photon.js. So here you can specify various generators here, and then also, right now we just support JavaScript and TypeScript, but we'll be supporting Go soon and a bunch of other ones. And then here we also support Postgres, MySQL, and soon MongoDB. So this is just some configuration up front, and now we'll actually create our models. And so the first model we'll create as a stand-up model, and a stand-up has a primary key. It has a name, and that name is unique across the stand-ups. And then it has some users. And then we'll define the users here. And you'll notice the way we're defining this, it's very intuitive. We're not writing any SQL here. We're not doing any explicit joins and all that stuff. It's just modeling it like you would like a GraphQL server. And so this looks good. Let's deploy this to the SQLite file. And so to do that, I'm going to be showing you our PrismaDev command. And to get PrismaDev, we just installed Prisma 2. Or we just published Prisma 2. And so you can install Prisma 2 this way. This is the dependency for preview version. And then when we do the general release, it will be just Prisma. But for now, it's under Prisma 2. I don't want to test the internet, so I've already installed it. And so let's run Prisma 2 dev. And so what this is going to do is it's going to create the migrations based on this file, and it's going to generate a Photon client for us. And so you can see the migrations in here. And Tim will actually be talking more about this in detail in a later talk. And also, I created the database, the prisma.db file. So that looks good. We have our generated client actually in here, Photon, generated Photon. So I'll pull that up now. And I'll initialize it here. OK. Now let's create our first stand-up. So the first thing you'll notice about Photon is it auto-generates exactly what the types were. And so we'll create a stand-up, and then we have a bunch of options here. And we have full type completion, create, delete many, find one, find many, etc. We'll be creating a stand-up today. And then you'll notice we get immediate type definitions for all of this too. And so we can say we'll create it with data, and we'll give it the name. And we passed in the stand-up name over here. And so we'll pass that along. And then we'll do users, and then create, and then we'll give it the username. And so right here, you'll notice we're doing more than you would typically would. Like we're creating a stand-up, and we're also creating a user by its username, and we're linking them together. So let's make sure that runs. Oops, I forgot the await. OK, and let's restart the server. And then we'll say create dev standup. Awesome. It looks like it worked. There's no errors. So that's good news. So the next thing we'll do is we'll actually code up this getting latest report. And so the way this is set up is we have stand-ups have many users, and users have reports. And so they report daily for their stand-up. So we'll create a new report, and we'll give it a primary key, and we'll give it a user, and then we'll say completed Boolean default false. Then we'll do the yesterday's question string. And one interesting thing to note here is that by default, this differs a little bit from GraphQL, where like the default is optional, but in this schema syntax, the default it's default required, and then you can be explicitly optional here. So we wanted to clean that up a little bit. Oh, and then the last thing I'll add is a created add datetime default now. All right, this is looking good. And so this dev flow is automatically, it's just kind of running in the background, running our migrations, and then it will automatically regenerate the client. So this gives you a really good workflow when you're in development. And then we provide a bunch of tools to go into production, which I won't cover today, but we'll talk about later. So, OK, so let's make sure this is working. So, okay, so we'll try to get the latest report. Let's see if we have it. Oh, wait. Photon reports. Looks like it's all there. And then we'll do find many. And we'll find the first report. And where, let's see, created add. The type definitions can be a little bit finicky sometimes. Yeah, greater than or equal. Yep, okay. And then we'll say greater than or equal to yesterday. So what this is doing is basically saying that pull the latest report that is that's been created since yesterday. So we don't want to have multiple reports over multiple days. And then we'll just, last thing, we'll grab the username. Okay, this looks pretty good. We'll need to return that latest. And we need to update this type definition over here, and we'll pull in the report, and the report is actually exported as part of the generated photon. So report here. Okay, this is looking pretty good. And then the next thing we'll do is we'll actually pull that latest in here. So we'll say first the user. Oh wait, photon.users. Find one, something like that. Yep, and then we'll pull the latest here, get latest report by the username. So what we're doing is we first pulled the user, and then we're getting the latest report from that user. And if that user, there is no latest report, we're actually going to create that report. So we'll say await photon dot reports dot create data completed. Actually, that's by default false. And then yeah, and then username. Actually, it'd be ID user.id. This is oh, we have to connect it. So so what we're doing here is we're first creating the report and then connecting it to that existing user. And then we'll say something like, what did you do yesterday? Okay. And then we'll try rerunning this. And we'll say give standup. And great. So we're at this point where we've created a report and also the user. And so now we can just say, like, if not latest yesterday, we'll then update this report, update. So data yesterday, message, and user. This looks okay to me. Anything wrong here? Yes, good call. Good call. Where? Thank you. Latest.id. Yep. Oops, sorry. It's ID is the latest. So we're pulling from the latest report and updating it that way. Okay, and then we'll say return. What did you do today? And then we'll just kind of copy this. So we're basically asking a series of questions here, and we're calling this function each time. And then you will say, like, all set. Have a great day. Okay, so let's try this again. Okay. Prep for the talk. What did you do today? Drinking. All set. Have a great Prisma day. Okay. Thank you. This So the last step I want to show quickly is post standup, and that will show how we have this novel select API that I want to demonstrate here. And so let's do await photon reports dot find many, and we're going to find all the reports where the created at is greater than equal to yesterday. And then we're also going to actually select the yesterday, true, today, true. So we're actually selecting specific pieces, fragments of the query here. And let's see. Oh, need to select here. Yep. And so one thing you'll realize is that reports, this type definition is specific to what we've selected. So this is the crazy TypeScript voodoo magic that Johannes was mentioning earlier. And so now once we go down here, we have like full control over this, and so we can say reports.map report. I'll create a quick out string like that, and then we'll say report or out.push report.user.username, and then we'll add a little bit of space here, and then we'll say the question, what did you do yesterday? Add a bit more space, and then we'll provide the answer to that. So we'll say out.push, and then we'll say report.yesterday. Let's see. Okay. I think because it's optional here. And then, let's see. Then this, and today. And then we'll just return that whole string, and that one should get printed out. Oh, join. Like this. Okay, let's try this now. Oh, I should say, what did you do today? Or what are you working on today? Something like that. Okay, let's see. And then this would normally happen on a timer, but since we're doing it live today, we'll just do it like this. Yep, and then it says, this is my stand-up for the day. What did you do yesterday? What did you do today? So that's all I got. Yep, thank you.